So you have the core, and they're made up of these 4 documents that we were looking at. 1, 2, 3, 4. The standards for ELAR, standards for math, standards for science, and social studies. And so these standards dictate or sort of control our content area. They guide the particular knowledge or facts that we need in order to teach that particular area, whether it be ELAR, math, science, or social studies, and that we have the skills, the particular pedagogical skills necessary in order to help students get what they need. And what they need is the second leg to what needs to be studied for you. And here are the links. They're not really highlighted, but these 2 sets of documents, the TEXES, coupled with your standards, or where the exam even comes from. It's what TEA, the Texas Education Agency, actually sends to Pearson, like, get it together for our new exam. I watched it happen with the STR when it was a new exam. So the state standards for us and the state standards for the students, which are the TEKS, and we'll look at those in just a bit, because we're going to look at how I want for you to tackle each of these one by one. Since y'all's is one of the more difficult areas, and it is, EC through 6 is more challenging. You have to know about more areas. You guys have to know more stuff about more things. It's just the facts. You know, you have to be competent not only in the facts about math, but also in the instructing about those same facts and skills with your students in those 4 through 8 classes, knowing how best to support them when they're in the 4th grade and they're learning math. What do we know about that group of students and learning skills, you know, and learning in general, and utilizing that knowledge in order to instruct? So teachers always get a bad rap, but you guys have to know so much. You have to be able to do so much with very, very little. And so tackling these one at a time, you get to sort of decide. You decide which one of these, like if you want to start with the one you're the best at and you're, you know, very comfortable in math for studying, start there. If it's math is something that you're afraid with, you want to tackle, you know, your weakest area first, do that. Children and adults are very much the same in that we have our own learning preferences, right? We're our own ways in which we learn best. That doesn't change when you graduate from high school and get that diploma. It sort of like solidifies later, and you get more stubborn in your ways. I still have people that want to meet with me in person, but it's just like that's the preferred. They want to go to a class. And when I lived in the Valley, we still could hold those PPR classes, and where everyone could come in and sort of take notes and be there to ask questions and be able to accommodate them. But now that I'm in San Antonio, that hasn't been the case so much. So these 4 content areas and the standards that the students have to become proficient in at each grade level are where the exam comes from. It's what makes up the exam. So our careful reading and understanding of these, I would guess you would call them 8 documents. Where would you like to begin to do like what I would say is a deep dive, where you're going to begin restating things, paraphrasing, looking up, defining, finding visuals, you know, creating graphs. If it's for math, there might be formulas involved that you would write, but it's sort of like either you do it. Oh my God, there's more puppies making noises, and I don't know what's normal. And I just have like my anxiety level is literally through the roof because I cannot take any more of my children's tears at this point. You know, and they're like, you can't leave the office. Like they're in my office right now, and so currently I am sequestered to this office to listen to these squeals. I can't even like relieve myself of the torch. I don't know what I'm doing. So anyway, they've quieted down. I got distracted. Where would you like to begin?
I guess with the first one.
Well, you get to choose which the first one is. It's your first.
Okay.
deep dive into the content area. And I'll just sort of open up English language
Mhm.
arts and reading quickly.
Mhm.
Important one. Each of your documents are going to be like this, and every single
Right.
content area has a dictating standard document. This is like the Bible, if you will, for what we
Mhm.
have to be able to do professionally. This coupled with the PPR standards, that is our sort of covenant to our profession. We need to be able to provide oral language instruction in 4 through 8. And so that language instruction is my God, they're making noises again. Systematic, structured, thoughtful, sequenced. And so knowing what works best in each of these areas, knowing what particular skills the students are going to have to acquire before they leave our classroom. And you're actually going to see a lot of overlap when you do your study for each of them. We're looking at English language arts and reading. And like, if I were
Mhm.
doing, let me close all this other stuff. Sorry. Okay. So if I were going to do one for like English language arts and reading, and I think I can do this where okay, so if I was going to do this, then I might like either if I'm love the savvy computers making things, they can drop pictures. Some people can make amazing annotated notes with their iPads or other sketch things, but I like to print them out and I write my stuff on there because that's my preferred way of doing stuff, and I get irritated with the technology, and so it distracts from me actually doing the task at hand. So, but for the purposes of us not being here in the same place, I would certainly print this out and take notes on here. I have very like detailed videos in each of the content areas in 4 through 8. And so I will show you those before we leave so that you can watch those. So like English language arts and reading, that content area 4 through 8, you guys have all of the same standards, just not you have more, you know what I'm saying? You have to do more content areas. And so going over some of those concepts, if you're unfamiliar with like morphemic analysis, we go over morphemic analysis in some of the ELAR 4 through 8 videos. So what I would do is create like a running document. So standard standard 1 oral language proficiency, oral language, you wouldn't write down or retype this. You, after you're reading and taking notes, it'll be a paraphrased. And so if we look at what it says here, I'm just going to make this larger for us. The teacher of students in grades 4 through 8 understands the importance of oral language, knows the developmental processes of gaining oral language, and provides a variety of instructional opportunities. Very important. That's a very important part. This is about our understanding of oral language, listening and speaking skills, knowing what is normal and helpful to the development of oral language, listening and speaking skills. And one of those things that we should know is providing opportunities for them to listen to many people speak and to practice speaking. Lots of speaking opportunities, listening and speaking skills. That is what oral language proficiency is all about. It's not just about speaking. It's your ability to both listen and speak. Can you listen for the message of a reading, of a conversation, of directions? And so in 4 through 8, really providing opportunities to build the student's ability to use language. And for us, it's not just like baby language, 4 through 8. We're talking about increasingly more specific academic language. So in science, it's going to be increasingly more specific. And as an English language arts teacher, and really as a, everybody should be working on this. And I say should because it's the law, because with our English language learners, we are supposed to be providing them instruction and developing oral language proficiency with all of our ELL students. And really, they all need it. Even our native English speakers need help with oral language proficiency because, well, there's many reasons, but the most glaring is COVID kept them away from opportunities, especially instructional ones, out of instructional opportunities for both structured and organic speech experiences with model English speakers who are utilizing both academic vocabulary and new vocabulary. You can always tell when a student comes from a home that they're well listened to and that or that they speak a lot based on their own oral language proficiency. And you can, on the flip side, sort of easily tell, especially at the younger ages, if they're not engaging in a lot of speech activities with, model English speakers or whatever the speech may be. But we pick up oral language by obviously providing direct instruction of vocabulary, providing opportunities to think and speak with the new vocabulary to develop those listening skills. And we're just going to do one at a time because that's how I want you to tackle it, like one step at a time. And so if I were to paraphrase that for where did those notes go? Lord. Okay, here there. So if I were to paraphrase this for my notebook, and I just put oral, that's weird. Language. And listening and speaking skills. So that's like the gist of it, right? But the teacher has to understand listening and speaking process. Why did I do that? This is why I prefer writing. Listening and speaking process. And what was the other? Provides opportunity. That was really important. Provides instructional opportunities. And instructional opportunities is like class opportunities to listen and speak. It's just my standard in my own word. And so each overarching standard you should paraphrase so that you'll be able to say, okay, in English, when you're reading the questions, you'll be able, if you study in this way, to say, this is oral language proficiency. This is a question on them, increasing oral language proficiency. The teacher's noticing that, they're having difficulty during like classroom discussions or not utilizing vocabulary, or they're and so wants to provide more opportunities. In your head, you'll say, I know what she's doing here. Like she is doing one of the specific things that we have to do in the standard that belongs to oral language, because we're not done just looking at it just yet. We just broke this one little sentence down. So it goes into, and this gets into like the nitty gritty, right? As Nacho Libre likes to say. So it's really breaking down what we just said. So it's not just listening and speaking skills. There's a lot that goes into building those listening and speaking skills. And so these things in the left-hand column, you have to know the concepts, the basic concepts. So we have to know the basic concepts, phonemes, segmentations, morphemes, morphemic analysis. And so if you don't know what some of those are, certainly watch my ELAR videos so that I can just teach you what they are, because there's videos where we go into and I explain exactly the difference between phonology, morphology, semantics, syntax, pragmatics, all of that. It's a very like detailed lesson. I was an English teacher for 16 years. So I didn't ever teach 4th, 5th, or 6th, but I am certified to teach them. I just taught 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and then college classes. So, and teachers now. Some of these, like I said, some of these concepts that may be unfamiliar to you, you can go to the YouTube channel where you have the core videos, and watch the ones for ELAR 4 through 8. The ones that are on Science of Teaching Reading also go into deep detail about phonemes and doing segmentation, doing substitution and deletion. And like, these are things that if you're an English teacher, you just kind of know that make it like easier for them to kind of get language as a game. I'll give you an example, and this is a little bit more on a basic level for my girls, but deals with segmenting words and playing games and sort of getting them to understand or become meta-linguistic, like play with the language and understand how language plays and sort of adapt to the nuances of English, which is something we know they can do the more practice and play they have with it. So an example would be my daughters and I were, I said the word at. What is that? What is that? What's that word? And my daughters are in 1st and 2nd grade. So if I give them something super easy like that, they'll be like annoyed with me. Like, Mom, that is such a baby word. Like, well, what is it if it's so baby? They're like, it's bat. I'm like, okay, but what if we delete the ba and I'm going to substitute a s sound? What if I put an S in there? What are we doing? Or like, and so just playing with it. And I'm like, okay, now what if I do it? What if I change at the end and I take out this one, and playing with the words and having them sort of map out in their head and see the language and the phonemes helps them play in that way with the language, with larger words and bigger pieces, and understand different chunks. We did it with like, I think Zuri was trying to think like, oh, I'm going to do a big alliteration. And it was like, Charlie likes cheese chips chica or something like that, like cheddar cheese chips chica. And so we looked at like the ch sound, which is a digraph, and playing with those concepts in the car on the way helps them become like more proficient with it. But going through this document, you'll see the standard that we discussed up here, and or that we sort of paraphrased and made our own. So we know everything in standard 1, all of this is going to be about oral language, about building listening and speaking skills, and about you providing a variety, not just one kind, not just two, like a myriad, a plethora of instructional opportunities to always be building. Like I said, this is actually something that by law we're all supposed to be doing. It's in our PPR to provide instructional opportunities for students, especially ELL students, to build language skills in those content areas. So providing organic opportunities for the students to speak, to summarize, to talk about, to pontificate, to debate about the different new words that we're giving them in instruction. So here you have basic concepts. We talked about some of them: phonemes, individual speech sounds, s, a, t. This has 3 phonemes in it. At, but it's sat. We blend it all together. But if I were to delete or substitute with a different phoneme, b changes the word. If I delete, or substitute the last one sound, and so getting the kids to play with this and getting them to acquire more words, spell more things, understand more sounds, very important. But we also, as they get older, segment bigger, right? Different word parts. We even I was in a 2nd grade class, and they were learning a new word, and they saw the un in it, the un before the word. They weren't like wasn't ungrateful, but it was something like my goodness, I can't think of it what it was right now, but it was an unword, and it was unknown to them. And because of the un and their knowledge, and she asked, like, well, what do we know about this word? Well, what ungrateful means, you're not grateful. Like, and so immediately they were able to get that definition and for themselves do that decoding together as a class. And so that's something that, certainly all the way through, you will make those connections. The developmental stage, you have to know the things on this side. We have to know all of this stuff. But we have to be able to do these things in the classroom. And typically in the scenarios, they're going to give you examples of the teacher doing something, needing to know something, but also do something. The teacher doing the most appropriate thing, providing the most appropriate plan, providing oral language instruction by modeling and reading aloud using language structures, pronunciations commonly associated with academic English. So that might be an example of what they're doing in the scenario. Wasn't a super good example, but let me see if I can find a better one for you. Provide instruction that interrelates oral and written language to promote students' reading proficiency and learning. So preview, review, discussion, questioning. So having that discussion of ideas, doing a let me see if it'll let me do it. I don't think it will, because I don't really know. Like, I mean, I thought we should be able to, I guess that's not the way it works. There was supposed to be this thing where you can like get whiteboard and I can show you. Oh, I think you can, but it has to be from there. But you can do and this is a very important strategy that you will learn if you watch the videos that are ELAR. But KWL, and I was trying to bring up, because I saw it yesterday, that Zoom made a KWL chart for its instructional whiteboards. And I was like, how cool. Why am I doing it the wrong way? Let me undo that. WL. And so it was really cool. I had like sticky notes all down here. It had little squares with 3 little columns. And so these first 2, these are some of the things or strategies. The K stands for, of course, what do we know? And so we talk about it with our students. Talk. What do we know? And so if this was a big class, and let's say we were doing like my STR class that I have on Thursdays, I might ask them, what do we know about phonemes or segmentation? And then anybody here, what do we know before the class begins? And people might say different things, or their experiences, or maybe some of their confusions. What do we wonder is what questions do we still have before we begin this topic, before we jump into this reading that we're going to do together. Let's talk about it. What do we know? Do we know nothing? Like, okay, we're going to learn about beluga whales. What do we learn about beluga whales? What do we know? I mean, not learn. What do we know about them? And then have the students wonder aloud and have that dialogue, have other people utilize language that well, I know that beluga whales are actually mammals. Really? Well, what is a mammal? And have like a little discussion about that. And like, they might be wrong, they might be right. That's not the importance of the activity per se. The activity is the instructional activity, the lesson itself, the reading. This is an instructional activity to get their like prior knowledge going, to get prior knowledge from other people who might have more experiences and be more knowledgeable, come to the table with a little bit more experience and or information, and or better questions, and have say, oh, that's a really great question, I didn't think about that. Well, how do they have their babies, or do they sleep? I'm not sure. That's a very good question. And so before you read something, so after you have read aloud in your reading class, since we're doing English language arts and reading, so you'd be writing things, and they would be writing on their stuff too. You might have them do it before, like, hey guys, everybody write, what do you know about beluga whales, before you even start talking about it. They all write something down. And then you might even do it a step further. Turn to your partner, think, pair, share with somebody. What does your partner know about beluga whales? And you might, or whatever. You might be in the 8th grade and it might be the Holocaust. You're going to read an article about the Holocaust. What do we know about the Holocaust? Write down, and remember, this is a serious topic, but let's discuss, what do we know? You respect, what do we know? And then come back as a class. So, my jumping from beluga whales to the Holocaust is just to show you the difference in sort of like maturity level that 4 through 8 would have to do in reading. In 8th grade, it's very normal for us to read about, Holocaust poetry, Eliza Wiesel, especially if the students are doing like high school credit inside their 8th grade class. And so the way that you come and approach things is different depending on the age group and the grade level. That's where you have to know like what is appropriate for them, as far as discussion, as far as activity, as far as even choosing like the types of reading that we do with them. But for 8th graders, you could certainly do a KWL chart for the Holocaust, or before you read something, and ask the students to do that, and then think, pair, share, and then have this big discussion. And that would be a huge discussion, because I'm sure kids would hear lots of different things that they'll come to the table with before the reading. And then what do you really wonder about it? We have all these facts, kind of have some misinformation and some other sort of tall tales and whatnot. What do we wonder? What are we wondering or wanting cleared up? And have that discussion, that cognitive preparation for the activity. So strengthening students' vocabulary, narrative skills, their ability to tell a story. You can't tell a good story if you don't know any good words. You have to have some great words in order to tell a fantastical story. So I have this really great activity that I love doing with my students to sort of get them to think about the words that they particularly choose. And it's just a found poem, and you can even do it with 4th graders. But one way to strengthen vocabulary for them is certainly to always be doing direct instruction of new vocabulary, or vocabulary that they're going to be reading or using in a lesson that might impede on their comprehension, and then you utilizing that language and reinforcing it in the discussions that you have with them, in the questions that you ask them, and having them write down and forcing them to respond utilizing that that new language, and always have them think, pair, share. Think, pair, share, I think, is like literally a crutch of my teaching, but it's so great because you should have carefully crafted where you placed your people. Certainly if they have a preference, you want to honor that. Like, I want to sit in the front because I need to, because I have ADHD and I'll get distracted. That's something that you want to honor, but not because I want to sit and hang with my friends and talk in the back. That's not something that we honor. But also, where we are in class, it's like playing chess, and you can explain it to the students, because that's how I explained it. Like, it's about where can I sit you best for your needs and where you're going to like thrive the most, get the most sunlight, the best exposure. When you have students in classroom, you're going to have a just this different melting pot of beautiful developing brains in these human packages, right? With feelings and different experiences, different homes, different levels of love that they're receiving and support, right? Attention, etc., etc. And you have to provide one lesson, during per thing that is going to be sufficient to all of their needs, all of their strengths, all of their styles. And so one of the ways you can do that by not, uh, killing yourself or making you go into burnout is to specifically and strategically group your students together in cooperative learning groups where students can help each other. You have really great oral language for kids high in oral language proficiency, GT. Pair them with some of your lower or your intermediate ELL students, and do a good mix where you have strength and weakness. You are going to have students in class that are bored, especially GT students, because much of what we do and the way we instruct is very, very easy. In fact, research says over and over again that statistically GT students have a higher incidence of like dropping out. They just get bored. And when teachers fail to make a direct real world connection, like, how does this connect to me later? And if it's just kind of worksheets and I'm just gonna zone out and I just am not gonna even, it's under the special ed umbrella. So you have to do particular strategies. And a challenge is having a buddy system, a partnering where you're strategically sort of sat next to someone where you can go elbow partner, think, pair, share with someone. And someone who might get bored doing the activity themselves will not be bored helping their peer understand the activity. You know what I mean? And they'll very often do it in a way. And if you've carefully crafted and the language is there, it just works out. And I know that my daughter, she's GT and she's brilliant, and she's constantly told me, like, I help out so and so who sits next to me, and I know that that's not by mistake. And to be honest with you, Zuri doesn't need any she's really very, very a gifted child. And I can't help much, she's already learning pre-algebra and she's in the second grade. So having her help and doing that and showing and illustrating and finding ways in her second grade lingo, but speaking and articulating the language is helpful, and that's not by mistake. Brilliant move by her teacher 2 years in a row. I think it's just a strategy that everybody knows to utilize. But having your students practice their narrative skills, spoken language, by providing ample opportunities to develop them. You have to, at the first step, plan for, implement, and that's what I'm saying. It's hard because the students are going to come with all different levels of oral language proficiency. They're not all on the same playing field. Some of them will have, not know what the word ruckus means. Just if a group of kids might not know what the word ruckus means, and it's not an academic word, but it's a word you might have heard around the block if you've been in some conversations, different kind of conversations. And so just depending on what you're reading in the classroom, you might have to choose more vocabulary words than the textbook. This is in real life, not for the purposes of the exam, But you have to identify your students' need. You'll know after having worked with them, after having spoken to them, what kids have strong language skills. I was always my parents, I guess, talked to me a lot. I know my dad talked to me a lot when I was little. And then so I always had really strong language skills. And then I had a lot of children, 5 children, and then they all spoke to each other. And so they have really the last 2 are in the 1st and 2nd grade. And everyone always remarks how well they speak and how high their vocabulary is. But honestly, it's just a matter of being around, because ever since they're little, and even the younger ones and even the older ones now, if they hear me say something and they don't understand what they mean, they'll say, what does that mean? And then I'll explain, like, I'll just do like a little like blah, 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 blah. And then hopefully later it becomes part of their vernacular, and they utilize it themselves. I've seen them pick up language and it become part of, the older ones. My 2nd oldest is a senior in high school, and my oldest has already graduated. I have a freshman, and then the 2nd and 1st grader. So all of them speak very, very well, but I believe it's about listening and just practice listening and speaking, listening to model English speakers, being given opportunities to learn and get direct vocabulary instruction, to read new texts with differing and varying language, and then opportunities just to talk and practice, especially for this leg of ELAR, the oral language part of it. Listening and speaking activities, so important. Providing students with opportunities to engage in active, purposeful listening in a variety of contexts, whether we're speaking, whether it's a game, you're listening for directions. And so those are even things you can do, listen for directions, and type games with them, like Simon Says type games, so finding opportunities for the students to practice. I'm sorry.
So just by the way, I do have to leave at 10:30. Just wanted to let you know.
Oh, no, not at all. Let me, I actually have to leave as well because I have to go take, but I need to see, I wanted to first show you how easy you can find like quick things for, like, if you were to copy and paste where we were making notes and you wanted to like continue under standard 1 and continue like making notes of the things that you have to do within this standard, especially things that maybe you are not familiar with. And by familiar, I mean, you would be able to instruct someone. You would be ready to have a conversation or explain to someone, this is what they mean by segmentation or like deletion, or, this is what they mean by, and I'm going to show you morpheme. Just going to show you morphemes. You can look at morpheme anchor charts, morpheme teaching, morpheme activities. As far as teaching is concerned, especially with like the EC through 8, but I would say even EC through 12, Pinterest is by far an amazing resource, not only to study, but for ideas for your classroom, because these anchor charts are important. You need anchor charts when you're teaching, right? You need to be able to do these particular lessons, and they do them in the classroom. So these are examples of morpheme and anchor charts, right? Root words, prefixes, suffixes. And I told you that I visited a 2nd grade classroom recently, and they were doing morphemic analysis. And I could, because I'm an English teacher, just right away, I already knew what her like lesson objective might be without seeing it written in her lesson plan. because it was just that clear with the activities, with her instruction, which is great, right? You don't ever want to walk into a classroom and be like, what are the kids doing? And what is the point? Like, what is the objective here? I could see they were doing vocabulary instruction for new reading. At this point, they were using language decoding skills to try to learn this new vocabulary words. They were doing morphemic analysis. And so here is a good example: prefix, root, base. These are morphemes, different parts of a word. If you wanted to look at segmenting and blending activities. And these are really great hands-on activities for the classroom. Some of them are a little bit like easier. So segmenting the different sounds, right? Isolating the different sounds so that the students understand that those different sounds are there. Oh my God, one of the puppies is whimpering, and that's how the other one started. It started with whimpers, and then it like was yelping, and then it was dead, and then my daughters were crying. Oh my God, I can't take it. It's buried in the front yard. And this was like at 8:30 at night, which was way past their bedtime. So everyone woke up very exhausted today, and it's just, I feel like I'm still in this, I don't even know what, because yes, my dog had a C-section, an emergency, very expensive C-section, which I will likely be paying off for the foreseeable future. So, back to the segmenting. I'm so sorry. It's just because I keep on hearing them whimpering, and it's like I'm unable. My ADHD brain is unable to let it go. So, segmenting is isolating the individual sounds, and we have consonant, vowel, consonant, and that's something that you have to know, the different patterns, the different sort of obvious patterns that our English language has. So because it's part of the TEKS. Blending is obviously moving it fast, and it has this little card, blend it fast, bat. So they understand when we take it apart in a word and then we blend it together so they can do it later, themselves. Before I let you go, because I'm gonna want for you to work on this, and then work on sort of dissecting the standards for English language arts and reading. First, disable or erase. Which do you feel most confident in?
In regards to the standards?
Right. Well, in regards to like the content areas, the TEKS, because Core 438 has math, social studies, and the whole thing. So which do you feel the most
I don't know. I'd have to really really think about that. Well, like me myself, I'm very good at communicating. I use my hands a lot, and I like to describe things. I like to give examples.
right.
So, I mean, I would definitely have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
just because a lot of it, I love like communication, right? I write, and I emailed and all this stuff like that. I'm very efficient in that regard. So it's like, I don't know if it's like written communication, if it's I mean, also I love science. I like science, part of my everyday. I'm in the medical field, so I'm just like that's what I live and breathe. And I have a 4-year-old pre-K-er, so I'm like, just giving her all this information. And all like you, I also talk. I never really wanted to talk to her like a baby. I don't think that's the correct way. That mom, I was like, no, that's not cute. It's not funny. It's just like, I want her to know dad, mommy, daddy. Like that's okay. And so like she speaks very well for a 4-year-old. She like her teachers always come to me like, wow, she speaks very impressively. I was like, I guess me and mom are just speaking to her like on a regular basis, and it's important.
Absolutely. And that it makes a difference. You can tell if a child has conversations frequently with the parents, because they'll want to have conversations with you. Like, you know, they'll go up to the teacher and be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And if I don't understand it, like, they'll feel comfortable even asking for clarity and have the language for it. And so having oral language proficiency is so incredibly important, not just to get our message across, but to be an agent of change or action in our own world, in our life. And for the students, as they navigate their school life, it's important, you know, to be active participants in their own education, sort of agents of change. But then later on in life, right, to be able to speak up for themselves and articulate their thoughts coherently. Oh, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Hey, wait. Okay, fine. I thought my oldest was going to work. I'm like, oh my God, don't take my car. Because in the craziness of this morning, I also did not make breakfast. Like it was not breakfast, lunch. And there's no free lunch. Everybody eats cafeteria food and the girls do not like it. So anyway, long story short, mom has to go take something fancy here in just a moment. But I gotta go right now.
Yeah, that's okay. That's totally fine. Like
Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, I'm actually like, I'm thinking he just left. He said, oh, I'm just gonna go down the road. I need to leave like right now.
Oh, okay.
But no, I'm telling him he needs to come back. So this is the other leg that I was telling you about. I need you to come back.
Okay.
And this is the fourth grade level. So what I did was I went here, and this is what you have the links to. You have the links to the TEKS, and this is where all of the TEKS are. Now, this is what by law the students have to be able to do before they leave our classroom, and by each content area and by each grade level. So you'll have to access both a little bit of the elementary and then all of the middle school. So fourth grade is where you begin, and you also have to, you know, each one of these be able to summarize to yourself what is the goal here for them. And we'll go into deeper detail because or watch my videos. I'm going to send them to you. I do have to run, but I'll send you the videos, and then we'll meet again to go into a deeper discussion with some of the other areas.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.